This seemingly endless cycle of loosening restrictions, only to re-implement them as cases rise, is taking its toll on people's health as well as their financial well-being. Here to help us break down those effects more in depth is David Williams, the president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. So David, when we look at this prospective coronavirus relief package, maybe I should take away the word perspective because it looks like perhaps nothing will get done on this front, but we do see that there is at least a debate taking place right now, and the big problem for the two sides is the price tag. Republicans have about a $1 trillion price tag on their bill. Democrats have about a $3.4 trillion price tag on theirs. So I just want to get your response to these developments.
Yeah, so we're talking about trillions now, and the benchmark used to be billions, but now, the starting salvo on this is $1 trillion, and the House wants, $3 to $4 trillion. So I think that we have really lost perspective on just how expensive these relief bills are. And listen, this is money that we're going to have to pay not just today, but tomorrow and years. And, our children, our grandchildren are going to pay for this. And it's, running up the deficit and it's running up the debt. I mean, we have a debt of what, 25, $26 trillion right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure by the end of the day, that number will continue rising. I'm sure everybody has seen those debt calculators that they always see counting up. And it's something, too, that has become normalcy to some degree. I mean, even during Republican administrations, we haven't been going back on our debt. There hasn't been pay gap stop type of things or balanced budgets, anything like that sort. But when we look at what's going on right now, I understand that this is an unprecedented crisis to a large degree. There is a need for some type of economic relief for a lot of Americans out there. We saw President Trump over the weekend taking some of that action through executive order. Does that change this debate at all, or is that still allocating money away from the government back into the deficit?
Well, it does change the debate because it puts the pressure on the Democrats to come back into town. They've left, the House has left for vacation, and they're not going to come back until September. So this puts a lot of pressure on the Democrats. And listen, this is a really bad precedent for the president to do this, because just because we like something doesn't mean that it's good, because the next president, whoever it may be, may do the same, but with really bad projects and really bad intentions. So the precedent is there. But listen, obviously, a lot of people are thankful for what he did on Friday. People that are unemployed, they get that extra kick, the federal unemployment. You have the rent, you have the other issues. So people are a little bit relieved. But again, this is going to cost a lot of money. And listen, the Democrats have to come back into town. There have to be negotiations. They can't take 6 weeks off during a pandemic. Who else in this country takes 6 weeks off and gets paid, what they get paid? So this is just unacceptable.
And I remember having the same exact conversation during the first coronavirus relief bill. They were debating on whether or not they could meet the ends meet, and they ended up leaving on recess once again, or even during that time. So I think it's easy for them to make those types of actions when they're not missing paychecks right now. They don't have to worry about evictions at the end of the month or anything like that. But I think you bring up an interesting point about precedent, because I remember, for example, when President Trump first declared a national emergency at the southern border, a lot of conservatives were skeptical, saying, why won't then liberals in the future be able to declare a national emergency when it comes to climate change or something of that nature? And once again, we're resurfacing that debate about taking emergency funds through an executive order and allocating them that way. So the prospect is there for a Democratic president to do it in the future as well. But I think that it's important, too, to understand what it means when we're driving up our deficit. I mean, it's a number that a lot of people don't actually look at. But what does that really mean for the average American when we talk about driving up our deficit?
So what it means is that if we have the wrong administration and the wrong Congress, there could be tax increases to pay for this, because the interest on the debt is going to be about $400 to $500 billion a year. Now think about that. Just interest on the debt, $400 to $500 billion a year. That would make it the second largest agency. The Department of Defense is about $700 billion. They're the largest, but man, that's a lot of money to be paying just on interest. And this is going to affect us, like I said, not only this year, but in years to come. And, we have gotten to this point, not because of this year, but because of the years leading up to this, is that Congress has refused to cut spending. They have refused to look at discretionary spending, entitlements. So we're here not because of the pandemic. We're here because prior Congresses failed to address this.
And I think a lot of that time, too, it comes back to the self-interest of lawmakers a little bit. I don't think any lawmaker wants to go to an election year saying that I voted against that $1,200 stimulus check, or I voted against that emergency relief funding that would have helped maybe small businesses through PPP programs or local businesses. I understand that it's a hard thing for a politician to do, but I think that when we have this argument and we really break down what goes into these decisions, I think the average American sympathizes with that, because at the end of the day, the average American just wants to be safe. They want to have food on their table for not only them, but for their children and grandchildren as well. And while we have this conversation, that is being put at jeopardy, because those future generations are the ones who are really going to pay the price when we talk about the issue of the deficit. I think you're right to say that. But David Williams, I appreciate you coming on tonight and breaking down this issue. Thank you.